Hey there, everybody. Today we are going to be starting up a new series that I will be doing when I can. It's going to be a throwback series. So we're going to be playing imported games from previous versions of Out of the Park Baseball and just see how the rosters compare to what we've got today. So we decided to play the Arizona Diamondbacks, and this is something I did on a stream recently. So I have already completed a season. We went 31 and 29, made the playoffs, and then promptly got knocked out by the Pirates of all teams in the first round. We built a very defense-oriented team. Billy Hamilton, Devin Barrero, and Andrelton Simmons are notable members of that category. A lot of staples from 21 are in here, including good old Evan White, who is fully retained by the Mariners, as he should be, and on our team. So that's great news. Shohei Ohtani, you'll also notice, one of my favorite players in 21, much less liked in 22 by me. We've acquired a lot of the relievers that you see frequently added. We made a big move to get Lance Lynn, Mike Minor, and Willie Calhoun, all three of whom were integral pieces to our stretch run for basically cents on the dollar. We have made a lot of great acquisitions, in my opinion, that have definitely strengthened the quality of this team far past where it is, or it was rather. We definitely added a lot of quality players, guys like Marcelo Zuna. Cole Hamels as well was an interesting one, added from the Braves. So, yeah, where we stand right now, it's currently arbitration. I have signed a lot of our arbitration eligible guys to extensions. The ones that are not currently extended are the guys I'm not sure are going to receive extensions. Now, you see, also got a lot of pending free agents. Now, the big ones to think about here are, first of all, JD Martinez is getting the qualifying offer. He decided to opt out of his contract at the end of the season. He wants a pretty big contract, and I think he will likely net us a first round compensation pick, which would be great. I don't really need to keep him around. I think we got more than enough depth to replace him. Andrelton Simmons, I could see us giving an extension to. If we don't, he's getting the qualifying offer. It's really that simple. It's definitely one of those things where I plugged him into Mops, and it has him as like an 8 WAR player. So it's very likely, I think, that we extend him and keep him around at least for the near future and possibly trade him later. Billy Hamilton's another one that we might look to extend. I'm probably not going to pay him too much if we decide to go that route, but he could be an interesting one. And Cole Hamels, I think we're going to have more than enough starting pitching, but if it happens that we need a fifth starting pitcher, Cole Hamels is definitely a guy we can cheaply sign to an extension and keep around. So as for the guys in arbitration, I don't want to pay Fletcher that much money. We've got Nico Horner in our minor leagues, which I'll cover in a minute. Vargas is a utility guy. I don't think he's worth giving an extension to. Marrero is awesome, but he's a fielder, so it's really a question of whether we're keeping him around as a utility guy, I think. Willie Calhoun is great, so I'm almost certainly going to give him an extension. And Tim LeCastro is just not that great of a utility guy. So I think, honestly, of these guys, Willie Calhoun's probably the only guy with a very safe bet to be with us. Now, as for the guys who are pending free agents without compensation, none of them are interesting. They're all way more expensive than I think they're worth, so we're just going to let them reach free agency as planned, and that'll be it. So, as for our farm system, we've added a lot of interesting players, very interesting players. Pache is the most notable. We made a massive deal to acquire Christian Pache from the Braves at the start of last season, along with Kyle Wright, who's one of our top players right now. We had to take on the salaries of Mark Melancon and Cole Hamels, but they were both great players for us down the stretch as well. And we got some cash. We didn't even have to give out that much, actually, just 3 mediocre prospects. So Pache is going to definitely be one of the players that we are very thrilled to have around for now and the future, honestly. He is going to be big. Nico Horner is another huge one. We acquired him from the Cubs in a pretty small deal. We just sent Marte over, received Horner in cash. Marte was not going to get us too big a return, and Horner was probably, in my opinion, the best option we were offered. Cal Quantrill was actually part of a huge deal from San Diego. We acquired Austin Hedges and a couple of relievers, getting rid of Madison Bumgarner. They only wanted one tiny little prospect to make it happen, so this was a huge salary dump for us, and we acquired a whole lot of talent in the deal as well. So I think that was an absolute fleece of the Padres. Quantrill's definitely a guy I could see being near the top of our rotation going forwards. Alex Reyes was in a deal from St. Louis. He is a guy I think we could give a chance in the rotation, but if we don't, his trade value is decently high right now, and he could be on the chopping block. Joe Ryan is another really interesting starting pitcher. I like to call him Justin Verlander Jr. Him and Strotman are two of my favorite prospects in OOTP 22, and I actually grabbed them here in this 21 import as well. Uh, Both are very good looking. I could see them succeeding easily. Pavin Smith looks great as ever. Pavin Smith is always a great value pickup, but we start with him being the Diamondbacks in this one. So it's just going to be a question of how do we get him up? What is his role when he comes up? Kyle Wright is in very high demand right now for other teams, and he's a very good pitcher, but I honestly don't know what his role in our organization is. Tony Gonson's another one I kind of got a difficult time figuring out. He was very cheap to get from the Dodgers, but he just doesn't really have enough talent to be a major league level pitcher. Tyler Ivey, by the way, should not be slept on. This is a guy we got from the Astros really cheap, and he is somebody I could absolutely see being an awesome starting pitcher. Alejandro Kirk, another great Pavin Smith style hitter, acquired from the Blue Jays in the deal that got us Caleb Joseph, who was our backup catcher. We also added Rowdy Tellez, who was a big part of the team last year, and got us Josh Naylor in a trade, which was awesome. We didn't really give the Blue Jays too much in this one either. This was a pretty big plus deal, in my opinion. And the big one, of course, is acquiring Wander Franco from the Tampa Bay Rays, the most talented player in the game, arguably. We had to take on Yoshimoto Tsutsuga's contract, but that wasn't actually that big of a deal, it turned out. Now, we did have to give a massive package up to get this one to work. Luke Weaver, Robbie Ray, Eduardo Escobar, Ketel Marte, and Christian Walker all went to the Rays in this one. It looks like all of them were pretty productive. Well, I guess Marte was actually pretty unproductive. But Walker, Escobar, not really Ray either. Okay, well, I guess this one is a pretty obvious clean win for us, as Franco's the easy first overall prospect. Trevor Larnach was also a nice little power prospect acquisition from the Minnesota Twins. We got him, Randy Dobnak, who was in our rotation briefly before getting swapped over to Boston, and Fernando Romero, who is probably our top pitching prospect at this point. David Peralta was the big piece in that one. He just was not really a player that I thought had a spot in our team long term. Clark Schmidt, always great acquisition from the Yankees. Nice, reliable starting pitcher. Albert Abreu, acquired in the same mold. Jeter Downs is just a mediocre prospect, but for whatever reason, the game likes him a lot, so we got him on the cheap from the Red Sox. Josiah Gray is always an awesome pitcher. I always like picking him up. We got a lot of outfielders, guys like Derek Hill, Carlos Tocci. What these guys could easily be our starting center fielder if we decide to let Billy Hamilton go to free agency. Junior Fernandez, always an awesome reliever to pick up. Notably, we also got Jordan Hicks in this deal, Alex Reyes as well, Zach Thompson. I mean, this was just a massive acquisition. We acquired a ton of talent, and we gave up a ton of talent. We gave up a lot of players that had at least some value, and I think we ultimately probably have more value from that right now, but it wasn't a bad trade for the Cardinals either. Aaron Fletcher, Sam Delplane acquired from the Mariners. Reed Detmers is really high in trade value, and OSA loves him. But looking at our scouts projections, he's not bad, but I think he's probably getting traded. He's a quality pitcher. I was surprised to have him available 18th overall in the draft, so we definitely took that opportunity to grab him. And I think that's paying off. Alec Thomas is actually looking really solid. I think he could potentially stick with us, which is very unusual. I usually trade him. He's got that solid defense he's always got, great on base skills, and I'm thrilled at the moment with him. Ty Tice looks pretty much MLB ready. That's great news. Bukauskas is a nice upside starting pitcher. I feel like the stuff, movement, and personality gives him great upside. It's just a question of how much that control is going to come along at this point, I think. What else? Christian Robinson, I think he's just a high value trade chip. I don't really have any other use for him. And that's all of our prospects. Well, I guess there are some other guys that are important too, but those are the big ones, and I don't want to spend forever going over every other prospect. So I've got a couple of trades set here that are relatively franchise altering, so we're just going to get right into those. And the first one we've got here is a trade with the Chicago Cubs. Now, a lot of teams really value Christian Robinson, and the White Sox really undervalue Michael Kopech. This is a guy that is a legitimate top rotation starter. The stuff is really high. The stuff potential is even more crazy. His movement is solid and the control is not too bad. He's got what, 5 years, 4 years of team control left, so he's about to his first year of arbitration, which he's already signed a cheap contract for. And then we have 3 more years of him at a reduced cost. That's awesome. We're also getting Ian Hamilton, one of the stronger upper minor relief prospects available. Luis Alexander Basabe, who is a very solid outfield prospect. Gavin Sheets and Jake Berger are both just minor slugging first base prospects, more toss-ins than anything else this deal. We're also going to be sending over Harrison Francis, a very mediocre pitcher, and Riley Smith, another very mediocre pitcher. I think this definitely nets us a whole lot of talent, particularly at this top of the trade with these two major league pitchers. We're going to have to see how they do. Also getting $2.1 million out of this trade. So I'm going to go just make sure we got our other trades in line, and then we're going to complete those as well. All right, so this is our big blockbuster. We are going to pull a Cardinals and get Nolan Arenado very heavily retained from the Colorado Rockies from what I consider scraps. So Arenado could absolutely slide over to shortstop for us, and that is frankly an option that we can consider for this year and the future. But for now, he's going to slot into third base, which is a hole in our franchise and definitely one of the scarcer positions in the majors at this moment. He's a captain. Outstanding defense, outstanding offense. He's probably the best rounded player in this game. Absolutely demolishes lefties while still being an elite hitter versus right-handed pitching. He's an Iron Man, and he's under control for a very long time. So getting 50% retained by the Rockies is huge. We are also acquiring top reliever Yency Almonte, who can also start if we decide to ever use him in that role. And Ben Bowden, another really strong relief prospect for the Rockies with a great personality. I just love this deal. We're going to be sending over David Fletcher, who's of course been a very solid second baseman for us, but isn't that great? And we do have Horner waiting in the hole in AAA, so I have no problem getting rid of him. Now, of course, since we do have second base, Phil Downs just isn't that great anyway. I have no problem shipping him over in this deal either. Zach McKinstry is just a utility guy. He's all right, but not somebody I have too much reservations holding on to. Clark Schmidt kind of stings to give up, but I think it's worth it to get so much off of Arenado's deal. And Framber Valdez was a great reliever for us last year. Could be a decent starter as well, but I just would rather again, get more retained and get this massive reliever return. I think these two guys are going to be great pieces in the bullpen going forwards. So, yeah, awesome deal. Awesome acquisition for us. Arenado is just going to be so huge in this team. Now, for our next deal, I believe it's with the Miami Marlins. It is indeed. We're going to be acquiring Sandy Alcantara as the premier piece. Now, we have been going after a lot of starting pitching, and you're going to see even more coming. Alcantara has a great 5-pitch mix. I'm sure very few remember him, but he was dominant in 2021. Highest movement and control with the outstanding stuff potential. I mean, he's a guy that you just almost cannot miss in terms of his upside. Lewis Brinson was cheap to acquire. He's a prankster. Could be a solid utility outfielder at the worst. Decent bat, decent glove. Like him overall. Sterling Sharp is another pitching prospect acquisition here. He's a guy who could be a starter or a reliever. He's got the solid stamina, great 3-pitch mix, great stuff, movement control, extreme ground baller with a good personality. I think he's just a nice little throw-in. The primary piece going over is Kyle Wright. Additionally will be Seth Beer, Cole Stapler, and this random throw-in. Cole Stapler kind of stings. I think he's a decent pitching depth. I don't really care about Seth Beer, but obviously Kyle Wright's the premier piece. But this is a very clear upgrade to me from Kyle Wright to Sandy Alcantara, so I'm really loving this trade. And our next trade is going to be with the Milwaukee Brewers. So the Brewers in their win now mode, we have 1 year control left for each of these players. Lance Lynn, who's going to be making about $4 million next year. So for a guy who can be a mid-rotation or maybe even a little better than that starting pitcher, $4 million is a great bargain. And Matt Barnes is an inexpensive, great closer. He's only making $3.5 million next year. That's awesome. But the cost is very high for the Brewers to acquire them. Corbin Burns, who was one of my favorites last year, is going to be coming back to us in this deal. He is going to immediately slot into the top of our rotation, probably even close to the ace spot. He's got 4 years of control left, so he's going to be a great integral piece to our core. Devin Williams, while not as good as he can sometimes be, has ridiculous stuff that's going to really play up with our outstanding catcher, Austin Hedges. And as you'll see later, I've got a plan for our next backup that should also play well into this profile. It's going to be interesting to see what he can do on our team for sure. Mikhail Bello, an interesting outfield prospect. The defense is all right. The offense is great. I love that he gets on base so much. I'm definitely intrigued to see what our development can do with him. Drew Rasmussen, another higher stuff guy. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do with him, but he was an easy little throw-in for me. Pitching depth at the least. He could be a reliever. He could be a starter. We'll have to see. And Clayton Andrews, another toss-in relief prospect. We're also getting $3.2 million in this one, and obviously we're saving a whole lot by shipping off Lance Lynn and Matt Barnes. Burns is going to be much cheaper than Lynn, and I think he's even better. So I'm really, really psyched to grab him. Obviously, I think Barnes is the big cost in this one, but Devin Williams kind of lessens that burn as well. So I think that's another huge, huge trade for us. Our next one is going to be with the New York Mets. So in this one, basically Josh Naylor is good, but he's not great. He's outspoken. His defense basically limits him to first base, where he's honestly not great there either. And OOTP 21, Josh Naylor, while good, is not OOTP 22, Josh Naylor. We're also giving up D'Alessandro, who's a mediocre catcher, Soto, who's not a great pitcher, and who's not a great pitcher either. David Peterson has always been a really good starting pitching option. Great movement and control, great stuff, great pitch mix, great stamina. He's controllable, he's cheap, he's a lefty. What's not to love about him? And actually, Robert Gsellman is the core piece of this return. Like Corbin Burns, and I actually noticed this during 21, which is crazy because I love him so much in 22. He's got really good stuff, a 4-pitch mix, and decent stamina as an extremely undervalued reliever. As soon as the year turns over, we're going to be signing him to a great team-friendly long-term extension. The control is actually a little bit better than Burns, but otherwise he's essentially identical with the stuff movement control rating. I think that he is going to be insane in our rotation. Riley Gilliam, a quality pitching prospect. Personality's a little bit of a problem, but I like him overall. Jordan Humphrey's a toss-in pitcher I like a little bit. And finally, Ali Sanchez, who is one of the premier catchers in the game, certainly one of the premier cheap catchers in the game. He is going to be our backup. Yet another captain added to the roster. He's going to be a mediocre on-base hitter with that awesome defense that we just love so much. So I'm really thrilled about that return as well. And now for our final deal. Jordan Hicks, for whatever reason, has insanely inflated value right now. Teams are paying through the roof to acquire him. We're also going to be giving the Nationals Axel and Dueza some mediocre catching prospect. In return, we're going to get, as you'll remember in OOTP 21, Carter Kieboom was very good. Well, for whatever reason, he's really well loved here and is actually pretty good anyway. So we are going to be acquiring him as the primary piece. Matt Cronin, a nice little reliever thrown in, and Justin Montgomery, another pitcher as well, getting a little cash. Just a nice return for a player that I honestly do not think should be valued that highly. So, looking at our pitching, just going to quickly set everybody who's a starting pitcher to starting pitcher, and then we're going to see how many we've got. The odds are we're going to have to figure some stuff out when it comes to the starting pitching. Now, we've also acquired a lot of relievers. I'm going to leave Sterling Sharp, even though he could very well start very effectively as a reliever because I just don't think he's going to have a spot in our rotation year one. So Alcantara, Burns, Gsellman, Kopech, and Peterson. That's a full 5-man rotation right there with those guys. So we still have Shohei Ohtani in the rotation. That's not going to change. He's going to be the ace. Mike Minor and Cole Hamels are both set for free agency, so we could just let them reach that. That does mean that we are 1 man over, however, on our starting pitcher numbers here. So what we could do, presumably, is just when we lock just sell him up to that long-term contract, we start him in the bullpen. He is a reliever at the beginning of the year. At some point, we probably flip one of the other guys for really good value, and then he joins the rotation. Now, our only other really significant acquisition here is Arenado, who's going to be a massive part of both the offense and our defense as well. It's just a question of what position he ends up playing. Oh, another problem that I have with this is Cal Quantrill I really want to call up at some point. He needs to be in the rotation this upcoming year. Corbin Martin should also join it at some point as well, but he's a little less urgent. Nico Horner is going to come up from the minors to play second base opening day. We could also use Pache in center field opening day. I think he certainly gets a chance in spring training to win that role. But I think worst case scenario, we've got some other guys in the minors who could fill that role as well, and we'll have to see about them. But here's what I'm thinking for now. We put Arenado at third base and Simba at shortstop. After this year, I trade Simba. We call up Franco to play third base for us, and Arenado moves to shortstop, where his defense is still going to be ridiculously good. I'm not entirely sure how set in stone that plan is, but I think it looks effective. We're going to have to see. I could have sworn I had a trade lined up for Logan Webb. I'm probably going to trade him away. He would be in our starting rotation, but we don't really have a spot for him. And he's good, but we have much better options, and his value is really high right now. So I'm going to work out what our next move is, and then I will do whatever that turns out to be. All right, we've got two trades here actually that I ended up coming upon. The first one is going to be sending a lot of our major trade chips away. That's going to be Reed Detmers, Logan Webb, Alejandro Kirk, and Matt Tice is thrown in as well. The big pain is Alec Thomas. I could not make the trade work without him. But we are acquiring the Rangers' first overall draft pick, so we will be able to get a player who we really like. I scouted ahead at the draft class, and there are several guys that I think are incredible talents, so I'm more than willing to give up this package to get them. Maximo Costa, who is a top prospect, will also be coming over. That helps soften the blow. And Scott Angler, who's a mediocre reliever, is going to round this one out. We've also got a trade lined up with the Astros. This one involves top prospect Forrest Whitley. We're also going to be acquiring Miles Straw, who can be a super utility / utility outfielder guy. I'm really loving his on-base profile. I like the eye and contact. I think he can be great. We're acquiring Martin Maldonado to be our backup catcher. This is going to allow us to keep Ali Sanchez in the minors for a little bit longer. We can flip him at the deadline as well if that's the route we decide to go down. And Forrest Whitley is, of course, the big name acquisition here. Outstanding stuff. The movement and control are solid. He's definitely a guy who could be a very good starting pitcher. And, of course, the prospect ranking means that other teams are going to value him highly as well. Albert Abreu and Alex Reyes are going over in this one. Neither of those guys are too great or have too much of a future. Adam Haseley is not too difficult to give up with Miles Straw coming back. Frankly, I think this is a straight upgrade. Straw is faster. He's better getting on base. His defense is roughly the same. Not too much to lose there. Oliver Drake was not great last year for us as a reliever. I had hopes that he could make it better this year, but he's not going to get the chance now heading over to the Astros. And Avery Short's going to round it out, just a mediocre reliever. The $10 million we're getting in this are also very significant. It's going to make it much easier to, well, that's really why we have Maldonado in this. He's bringing a lot of cash with him. So ideally, we can use those two trades with our improved farm system to really make sure we've got a strong deal going for our prospects. So, yeah, I think that's about it for now. I've already hired all the staff we need to for this offseason, so I think I'm going to simulate up until the free agency filings. Well, I guess I'll look into some contracts as well during this period, but I don't have anything major trade-wise to do going forwards other than what we've already done. All right, here is our first contract. So we are going to be giving Andrelton Simmons a pretty backloaded deal. I might be thinking this is very unlike me, but really, it's not, because this is essentially a 3-year deal and then he's getting traded before we get to the back end. As you remember, we've got Wander Franco coming up, which is going to move Arenado off third base. So the logical move is to get rid of Simba and move Arenado to shortstop, where he's going to be a much more valuable player overall than Simmons if his defense continues to drop off. We've got some more moves coming, so we'll just keep you posted on those contracts. All right, we've got a contract here for Corbin Burns. So this is a guy that we expect to be a solid, at least mid-rotation starter for us. So getting him locked up past his arbitration years and into a couple years of free agency is going to be very significant. I'm definitely happy to have him around, and we will probably trade him for some very good return at some point. That's just another little thing to keep in mind here with Burns. We've got Willie Calhoun extended as well. 7 years at really low AAV for a hitter of this caliber seems very good. I'm not sure what position he's going to play for us defensively at first base, left field, DH, but I'm just glad that we have somebody like this that we can rely on to be a solid bat, locked up for the long term at a very affordable cost. I found this guy, Juniel Karakudo, inside our organization who can competently play second base, third base, and shortstop, has good ratings and should train up even better. The on-base ability isn't terrible either, so I think he's at the worst not a terrible utility infielder, and certainly the route that we are going to look to go with at this point. That means that both Devin Marrero and Ildemaro Vargas are going to have their uh, offers withdrawn in an attempt to cut costs slightly. So that's going to save us probably about, I'd say, $1.5 million, which is real nice. So yeah. All right, we've got another good mid-rotation starter on a very team-friendly extension. David Peterson is willing to sign for 7 million or 7 years at only 4 million average annual value. This is going to buy out 6 years of team control, so 3 years of pre-arbitration, 3 years of arbitration, and 1 year free agency. I'm really liking the value on this one. We're paying him only a slight raise over the years where he would be in pre-arbitration and really cutting into his potential earnings past that point. I think that contract could really pay dividends. That's going to be it for now, but we could look into offering extensions to guys like Sandy Alcantara, Robert Gsellman. Who else do we have here? Michael Kopech. After we get through the arbitration period. So we're going to simulate on ahead and see what comes up. Okay, we have some very weird good news here. Ken Kendrick has invested into some very good real estate. So hopefully this means that we have more budget in the future. But basically, Ken Kendrick is one of the worst owners you can have. So it's good that something good is happening here. All right, one last point before we hit free agency. JD Martinez has indeed declined his qualifying offer, so we can expect a supplementary first round pick in next year's draft as compensation. All right, our first move of the offseason is going to be extending Robert Gsellman for 6 years. So this takes him into 5 years of free agency. I think that's a really good pitcher to buy out 5 years of free agency at an AAV around $6 million. We're going to be looking at Kopech and Alcantara as two other potential extension targets. I don't think these guys are going to stick around necessarily, but they're going to be excellent trade value. All right, well, unfortunately, Alcantara and Kopech were uncooperative and we could not work out extensions with them, so we're probably just going to get them up to their maximum potential and then flip them at that point. So what we're going to do here is quickly review the contract situation and then start signing free agents. So we've got Shohei Ohtani on the massive front-loaded deal. We have really three big contracts right now on the books. Ohtani, Arenado, and Simmons. So Ohtani's contract starts out ridiculously huge, but then shrinks down to much more manageable points in the future. Now he's definitely worth every penny of this. Not only is he an ace caliber starter, he's one of the best right fielders, if not the best right fielder in the game. So his all-around production is just going to be unmatchable by any other player. Next, we've got Arenado, who's a stable $17.5 million every year. I really hope he doesn't take this opt out because he's going to be a massive part of the franchise. He's a ridiculously good hitter with insane defense and, of course, the sweet captain personality. definitely sticking around. But Simmons, on the other hand, we're only playing him for at most 2 years. And I really think it's just going to be this 1 year or maybe only part of this 1 year before Franco gets the call. I was just taking a look at Franco. He's pretty much MLB ready at this point. I think he could use a few months. We might even start him in spring training just to get another look at him. But he is very close to coming up, and I would prefer to get Simba out as soon as possible. So I'll free up a ton of extra cash. Austin Hedges, Corbin Burns, Willie Calhoun, and Dave Peterson are on notable contracts for the long term. They're going to be nice parts of our core. And that's about it for now. Franco's going to get a long-term extension to replace Simba's contract, and you better believe that Pache is going to get an extension when he comes up as well. So we'll have to see what those end up looking like, but hopefully we can get some good stuff in place for those guys, have them cost controlled for a while. I'm not sure what we're doing with Horner yet, but I don't think he's getting a long-term extension the day he comes up. So we'll have to see about that. But the big thing is going to be relievers. I was taking a look at the market, and I have offered some guys minor league contracts already, but it's going to be relievers. We've got Ken Giles, although he's not the big name on this market. There's actually a lot of international guys I'm really liking. With this Tsuyoshi Nakashima guy being the best, although he is unmotivated. So I'm going to figure some of this out. We do have enough money for probably at least two of those guys, so I'll get back to you guys with that. All right, the first player we're going to sign here is Alex Macias. He only wants a pretty small amount to join our organization, so I have no problem at all giving him 2.75-ish million over 3 years with a great personality and great talent. So I'm very excited to have him join us. All right, Tsuyoshi Nakashima is also going to take a good contract here. This one's front loaded. It's going to be 4.5 average annual value. So $7.5 billion in the first year, but then it drops off heavily, only 5 million, then 3.5, then 2.5. We might sign another free agent, but these are going to be the two big ones, I think. So I'll take another look before we end this free agency period for now. Okay, so we're going to sign Adini Hachavaria to be our utility infielder. He's a much better hitter than Karakudo, and he's also got some really nice defense, so I think he'll slot in well. Worst case scenario, somebody gets hurt, he is going to slot in very nicely to be a backup in that case. So we're going to have to just see how he does. I'm very happy to have him, and I think that's going to be the last one, but I'm going to take another quick look to double check. All right, we ended up not giving a contract to either of the players earlier, so here's what we're doing instead. We're going to give a very weird contract to Mookie Betts, and the plan is that he either opts out or he's traded after the first season. So he's going to be playing left field for us, and as weird as this is, I think it could be very beneficial to our organization in the short and long term, depending on the packages we can get. So we're going to have to see about this, but I am hopeful. Well, Betts has upped his demands, and I'm having a hard time meeting them. I'm going to think it over a little bit, but we are probably not going to sign him. I've also determined that if we do sign him, it's going to be Shohei Ohtani moving to left field while Betts will stick in right. No, no, no. We'll trade Betts up in left to increase his value. But again, I'm not so sure we're signing him at this point. We're going to have to see. Well, I made a bid on Betts after working him down a little bit, but what he's asking for now is just ridiculous. I can't see any team willingly handing him $50 million at the end of this deal, so I think we're going to just let him sign with another team at this point. And we have signed two of the three relievers we were targeting, or I think we might have actually only targeted two. I'll check to see if we've got any free agent offers still out. Okay, we've got Hechavarria still out there, and that's it. So we've signed the two relievers that we went after, and that's really all we were trying to do in this free agent cycle. So I think I'm happy with our performance, and that's going to be it for now on the free agent market. All right, it's time for the Rule 5 draft, and we have got a loaded one this year. There are top prospects galore. We've got Geraldo Perdomo, Ryan Mountcastle, Jazz Chisholm, just a ridiculous mess of guys. I'm not entirely sure how many players we're going to end up drafting, but I've got a large number shortlisted that I am at least interested in. I have protected everyone that needed protecting, and I've DFA'd a couple of guys that I either think are going to make it through or would not mind losing. Actually, that's both of those are true for all of these guys. So we've got 4 spots. We're going to draft first players that I intend to trade away immediately, and then we're going to draft players that I plan to keep around. So let's see who goes before our round. Shoot, I did not realize that Tower Ivy was Rule 5 eligible. That is a painful loss. Definitely a guy I was really happy about acquiring from the Astros, somebody I was really high on. And because I was careless, he ends up with a different organization. Now, I did just trade Josh Rojas to the Marlins, or the Reds rather, for a 2-player package of Nick Lodolo and no, it wasn't Nick Lodolo. It was Packy Naughton and Ryan Hendricks, along with $2.5 million. So that was a good return for a player I was pretty sure was going to get drafted. Rogelio Armenteros was a guy I was looking at potentially taking, so he will go to the White Sox instead. Cole Irvin goes to the Phillies. I don't think any of these other guys were on my radar. So other than the loss of Ivy, that's not terrible. Canelo I was also looking at, and it kind of sucks that he got drafted, but not too much. So I think the first player that we're going to take here will be the top 100 prospect of the list, Luis Garcia. He is currently clocked in at number 96, decent third base infield prospect, and we'll have to see what we can get from him. I'm going to do 2 at a time, though, for the shopping. Wyatt Matheson also goes in the Rule 5 draft. I don't care. Wyatt Matheson's basically a nobody. So we could draft Albert Abreu, but I almost want him to be on our roster, so I'm not going to take him just yet. Jazz Chisholm or not Jose Devers. Yeah, Jose Devers is not MLB ready. We've also got the option of Mountcastle or Perdomo. I think Perdomo's probably the most hyped prospect at this point, so I'm going to draft him, and we will shop Perdomo along with Garcia. See what we can get. Hopefully some good offers here. Actually, let's look exclusively at prospects since other players will take up spots on our 40-man roster. Ooh, Spencer Howard. We got some good offers here. Brett Honeywell is awesome. Kyle Muller. We might actually have to expand our radar a little bit and potentially look at getting some star MLB players. This is awesome. Andrew Vaughn. Holy cow. He's a number 17 overall prospect. I mean, he's not as good as he is some of the time, but he still looks very good. Miguel Amaya's top 100 prospect as well. Yeah, this is getting us some really good offers. Frankly, I'm surprised it's this good. I'm impressed that we are getting all this. Clark Schmidt's a top 100 at this point as well. I'm sure Braxton Garrett's a top 100. Oh, he's actually not, but he is a very good prospect. Nick Nieder's a pretty good prospect. Trevor Rogers is a very good prospect, number 99 overall. Monty Harrison's probably top 100. Luis Garcia, well-respected pitcher for the Astros. Daniel Lynch for the Royals looks pretty decent. Brandon Marsh for the Angels, one of my personal favorite prospects. I love him as an outfielder, number 84. He's certainly on my radar at this point. Franklin Kilome, the number 50 prospect, a high stamina reliever slash starter for the Mets. Ooh, Dalton Jeffries is a very nice pitcher. I don't think we acquire him here, but he's definitely somebody we look into in a separate trade. Here's Spencer Howard, pitching prospect I generally like a lot. What's his top 100 rank? 40. Impressive. Bryson Stott could be a top 100. No, he's not. Steven Alamis, not somebody I'd acquire here, but a prospect I respect heavily. Ooh, CJ Abrams. He's not as good as he is in some situations, once again, but a very good prospect. I still think Andrew Vaughn takes home the trophy here. That's a very tough offer to top. Sean Gell is also a very nice looking prospect. I tried to acquire him earlier from the Giants when I was looking at trading for draft picks. But yeah, it's going to be Andrew Vaughn. It's so difficult to top a player like this, and I'm sure his value on the free agent or on the trade market is going to be insane. So the fact that we could pick up is great. Let's see if we can get Luis Gonzalez. If not, we can always take him in the Rule 5 draft. All right, great. Matthew Thompson. He's a pitcher I personally like a good amount, so we'll see if we can't grab him. Some TCR, which he is somewhat likely to happen upon, makes him a very good pitcher. I don't really know how many players here I'm particularly interested in, though. Ooh, Bernardo Flores Jr. looks good. Great, and we can get him free. There's Rogelio Armenteros, the guy I was looking at potentially taking in the Rule 5. Zach Davies ending up on the White Sox. Ironic, since he went to the other Chicago team in real life. Let's see if we could get some cash then. Probably, since I don't really have too much else that I'm prioritizing in this trade. I think we've got the player we want. Andrew Vaughn is definitely going to be at least an interesting trade chip. At the best, he could be an interesting player. I'd definitely like to plug and chug him into mops, see if it likes him. All right, now back to the Rule 5 draft here. All right, so our next selection, let's see who else got taken between our last two picks. So Mitch Walding, interesting selection by the Nationals. All right, I think Jazz Chisholm is probably the highest profile prospect left at this point. We could take Mountcastle and actually use him. I'd say that's certainly viable, but I also think that his... Ooh, somebody else got drafted. No, nobody got drafted. It's just my imagination. Okay, at this point, I think we're going to draft Mountcastle. He's a high enough profile prospect that I have a feeling he will be good trade value. So we'll shop him and Chisholm around, see what comes up. Probably not going to see quite the same caliber prospects that we got offered last time around. We could still see some decent offers. Shoemake is good. Shoemake is a solid prospect. Dean Kremer is not the worst. Decent starting pitcher. Cody Hero is very quality reliever. It's just not what we're looking for since he's on the 40-man. Dane Dunning comes up again. Vladimir Gutierrez again. Not someone I'm super interested in. Jonathan India, not quite a top 100 prospect yet, but solid. Jose Garcia is also very solid. I'm liking this Reds offer. Ooh, Taylor Trammell from the Rockies. Very interesting. A captain. Could be a decent utility outfielder one day, or maybe even a top 100 prospect with a little TCR, which, again, having a good personality helps get. I gotta say, Monty Harrison is tempting. Jahmai Jones also looks interesting. DJ Peters from the Dodgers. I was looking at him a while ago, but I certainly wouldn't pick him up here. More interesting pitchers from the Yankees. Certainly seen our fair share of those offered. Adonis Medina, interesting. David Parkinson. There's Bryson Stott again. Ivan Castillo, not a bad prospect. Owen Miller can also turn out well some of the time. Wyatt Mills, that's probably our best offer yet. Very solid relief prospect for the Seattle Mariners. Chadwick Tromps overall is stunningly high, and his ratings actually seem to support it. Our scout really likes him. I think Tromp could be the worthwhile pickup just because he's probably going to be very easy to flip for even better value. Yeah, it's got to be Tromp here. Let's see if we can't get Higel in the trade. I doubt we can, but oh, it looks like we actually can get Higel in the trade. That's great value. Jake Berger's probably going to be the toss in here. Actually, Connor Graham's, Dominic Fletcher, a lot of guys here that we don't really care for. What is this, Dre Jameson? Yeah, not what he is in 22. We can afford to move him. Oh, actually, instead, let's see if we can get money off Trump's contract. So the next team that we send him to will be more inclined to take him, or will pay more to get him, rather. All right, I'll take the 15%. And let's get Trump out of here. I'm very surprised to see his overall rating and his individual ratings at that be so high. It looks like this is the last shop we're going to be able to do, which is unfortunate since we're not done acquiring and trading players yet. The quality of offers actually seems lower. Oh, wait, there's Daniel Lynch again. So the Royals are certainly willing to put together a package. Marshall Kasowski, he's on the Rule 5 draft roster, as is Kyle Doey. There's White Mills again. White Mills is probably our next trade acquisition target. And I think our target is going to be the Royals here. Daniel Lynch will be the primary piece of this package. I'll see if I can get Nicky Lopez. Okay. Nicky Lopez would allow us to leave Horner in the minors for a while to allow him to train up, and then we could move Lopez to another team for some kind of return, bring him back later. Who knows? Let's see who's expendable here to the greatest level. Guerra's probably the most expendable. No, it's Gonson. Gonson just does not really have a place in our organization at this point, sadly. And that means he's going to be moved on from. Oh, let's take another look at their prospect pool, see if anybody else is interesting. Bobby Witt Jr. is actually not interesting to me right now. Michael Currian looks actually quite good. I think we should try to throw him in. I don't want to pay anything extra though, so if there's prospects that are meaningful here, then I'm not doing it. I could do it, I just don't really want to do anything extra. Chris Bubik is generally not bad. I forgot Garrett Crochet was a draft pick. For some reason, I thought he had just been with the White Sox forever. Michael Gigliotti was getting offered to us. I assume he's going to be a cheap acquisition. Oh, maybe not. Kyle Isbell, not as good as he is in the modern day with the bat. Jackson Kowar is interesting enough that I would at least like to try to get him. Yeah, I don't want to give up like literally anything extra, so we're just going to get cash at this point as much as we can. All right, so this is going to do, and we will accept the offer. Activate Nicky Lopez so he doesn't get sniped in the Rule 5 draft, and then continue our Rule 5 draft strategy. All right, so here we go, putting Nicky Lopez onto our active roster. Wait, for some reason we can't do it. Should be able to. There we go. All right. Oh, and we should also protect Higel while I'm thinking about that. Okay, of the players left, Marco Feliciano is probably the biggest profile, so we'll snipe him. And let's go get that reliever from the Mariners. Wyatt Mills. Logan Gilbert would be a nice acquisition if we can manage him as well. But that I do doubt. All right, here's Feliciano. So that's not going to be enough by himself. We'll have to take another prospect here. I think somebody might have actually been drafted there. Nope, still nobody drafted. Okay, and now I think we're going to take Armis Ottoman from the Chicago Cubs, add him to this offer. All right, that still isn't going to do it, so we're going to need to add more. At this point, I'm thinking Jose Devers, maybe? Zach McKinstry could do. Oh, I think we're at our 40-man roster limit. Yeah, we're at 40 guys, so we'd have to DFA somebody to draft him. We just don't really have anybody worth DFAing, so we're going to have to brave it. Or not brave it, just force this trade to happen. Throw some random mediocre player in to complete it. Yeah, you know what, Jake Berger will suffice here. Maybe we can get Gerber as well. He'd better be real cheap, though. I don't want to pay anything extra for a reliever. I would go a little bit higher for Logan Gilbert, though. All right, well, that's too much higher, so we're going to go with cash. I don't know how they got so much cash and yet have so little budget space. Speaking of which, I need to set our season ticket prices because those are going to lock very soon. So I'm going to do that immediately. Okay, let's set these to $31.5. You want your season tickets to be more expensive than your general season or your game by game tickets, essentially because you are going to want to sell out in the moment, but you want to make as much profit per sale beforehand as possible. Okay, so now we're just taking players as flyers. Are you going to be ready to join our Major League roster by spring training? And I think the guys we want to take are Robert Stock, who's a safe option to be a reliever. So if we need somebody to fill in, he's there. Marshall Kosowski, don't know how that control is going to play. We're going to have to see about it in this league. See if he can improve it a little bit. Blake Cederland, who we're just going to check out, and Albert Abreu. So I'll start with Albert Abreu. I think in general, these guys are more likely to be traded than released because they are pretty good, but we'll see. Oh, I just realized we can't actually manage to draft everybody here. So we can't even manage Blake Cederland. Okay. I did not realize our roster was so full. So I guess Albert Abreu is getting traded then because I don't really have too much of a use for him. Except our shop option is not currently available. So we're going to have to find a team and a player that we want to acquire. I think the Braves have a reliever I was interested in. It was Jeremy Walker. So hopefully this will do. I'm not liking it. They want way more than I expected to complete this deal. Walker's a good reliever, but I think we'll just go for cash instead. I'm surprised they won't even give us 500K. Not even 100K. Okay, so apparently the Braves think Abreu is worse than nothing. I'm sure the Orioles will disagree with that assessment. A team that has absolutely no talent and desperately needs just about anything they can get their hands on. Yeah, Orioles want him. The Orioles will pay 500K for him. They won't quite pay 5 million. I am glad that we could get something from the Orioles, though. All right. Blake Searland will be the last selection for our draft this time around. I think Robert Stock is just going to be left out. We really do want that upside right now. We don't need the safety selections quite as much. All right, we're going to simulate up until spring training now. And I think at that point, we're going to play through spring training, see what happens there, and then our next episode is going to be the first part of the season. So this is the only one where I'm going to do a really in-depth off-season, and this is because it was the first off-season. I always spend more time on that. But here we have Hechavarria signing his one-year deal. I mean, somebody's got to get DFA'd, but it's great news because now we have our quality utility infielder. Who do we want to DFA here? Probably Javi Guerra. I'm not terribly thrilled with him, so we'll wave in DFA him. He gets picked up, and I'll see you guys at spring training. JD Martinez has just signed a deal that just barely netted us a first round draft pick. Now, this is the type of deal that in the real world, the Braves would negotiate this down $1 so they wouldn't surrender as high of a draft pick. But in OOTP, we will settle for our supplemental first rounder. It's a shame that JD didn't fetch more money in free agency, but he will replace Marcell Ozuna in the field for them, which I think is going to sting, so we're going to have to see how that works. Great news. The penny pincher Ken Kendrick has bumped our budget by $20 million. This is a very big surprise, and I don't really know if we have anything to do with it. I don't know if Mookie Betts is still a free agent or what, but this extra money is definitely unexpected. We could always just put it into like scouting or something, but we're going to have to see. Okay, we are actually going to make one free agency signing. $4 million for Corey Kluber is just ridiculous. Why is a guy this good making $4 million? This is basically Lance Lynn, but he's fragile. And he didn't really pitch last year, but I mean, $4 million is not an expensive bet, especially in a year where we do have all that extra cash. So ideally, we can get Kluber to be successful with us. If not, it's not going to hurt too bad. Try not to laugh. Mookie Betts ended up with the Detroit Tigers of all team on a $4.35 million average annual value contract. He makes $10 million his first year and then an insane amount every year after that. So that's hilarious. Good luck with the Tigers bets. We'll see how that goes. Well, Corey Kluber signed almost instantly for the $4 million, so he must have been desperate. Something I did not notice is he was a compensation player, so he turned down the QO for a $4 million contract, but we also lost our third round draft pick, sadly. Curt Schilling, Roger Clemens, and Barry Bonds all get inducted into the Hall of Fame, so congratulations to them. And yeah, so Corey Kluber is on a cheap deal. He's going to find a spot in our rotation somewhere. Oh yeah, and we've got to clear another spot on the 40-man, so we'll see about this. All right, our spring training rosters are set, and they are a little bit convoluted. So we're going to be running a 6-man rotation with Shohei Ohtani being the ace, Corey Kluber being second, Corbin Burns being third, Michael Kopech being fourth, David Peterson being fifth, and Sandy Alcantara being sixth. So we're going to figure out probably Kopech, Alcantara, or Kluber. Likely one of those guys is either going to the bullpen or being traded in the case of Kluber. Our bullpen, we're going to have Nakashima being our closer, Bowden and Macias being our setup guys, and we are going to have Hagel, Sharp, and Gesellman be very high usage, very high leverage. A whole boatload of guys as middle relievers. A lot of these guys are either flyers or prospects. And then Bukauskas and Whitley, who I just decided to use as long relievers because they're lower caliber at the moment than most of our other guys. For our outfield situation, and actually I'm thinking, does Pavin Smith? Yeah, he does not have outfield ratings in this game. Okay, does Wilmer Flores have outfield? No, that's not going to work. Willie Calhoun can play left field. No, that's a terrible idea. Okay, you know what? Forget what I was about to say. But the goal here is to train up Arenado a little bit shortstop, train up Wander Franco at third base some, get Horner trained up at second, get Lopez in there. We want Hechavarria to start training up at third base, get Elise Sanchez into some games, make sure everybody's going in. And yeah, that'll be our goal of spring training. So I will come back to you guys at the end with the final roster and see how things are looking. Well, in the very first player development update, Corey Kluber's ratings have already gone significantly down, so I think this is a time where we already start to look for trades for him. So yeah, we'll see about that. The trade we're going to be making is another 1-year upgrade. We are going to acquire Brad Hand from the Cleveland Indians in return for Corey Kluber, so he's going to be a fit in our bullpen, just a nice little upgrade over what we currently have. I'm going to stick Gesellman in the rotation for the rest of spring training, give him the opportunity to get some starts, and we'll see how Hand does. We'll see if he ends up remaining in our bullpen or being traded or what, but I'm just glad that we managed to get rid of Kluber. That's the main thing. There's nothing more representative of the year than Austin Hedges batting .419 and leading the team in home runs, and Nico Horner being second in home runs, and Christian Pache being third in home runs. So far, our run prevention has been ridiculously good. I am very happy, especially given that we have guys playing out of their positions. You can't really ask for much better than what we received. So yeah, I'm happy about our performance so far in spring training. 9-2 is great, and hopefully we can get some more of this. Ty Tice, of all people, is going to be the one to be charitable. So we're going to start a charity here and hope that we get our market size improved. Let's see what happens. So we're going to simulate again. And if we're lucky, we'll have more money in the future. And of course, it does the weird thing where it kills our market size and we went from higher to lower. We increased our loyalty but lost our market size. Yeah, I really just do not understand the start a charity thing, honestly. I don't know if it's supposed to be a trade-off. I don't know if it's a worthwhile trade-off. But yeah, that was kind of weird. Well, even before I build our rotation, in finality, I think it's been decided for us. Michael Kopech's fall off a cliff is just not going to work. We're going to have to move him around, and we are going to use probably not Forrest Whitley despite his gains, but instead Gesellman in the rotation. I'm definitely encouraged by him, so we're going to have to see how it goes. But that's the route we're going down. Also, unfortunately, Arenado lost a step defensively and lost a little bit of power. So hopefully it doesn't affect his output too much. He is going to be a very critical part of the team. let's take a quick look at Wander Franco and Christian Pache's performances in spring training. That's going to be very big. Where are we? We want splits. Perfect. So for spring training, Franco was very mediocre. No extra base hits. Couple of walks. He didn't have too many opportunities. Definitely starting the year in the minors, though he didn't train up very much at third base either. Pache, ratings are looking a little bit better. And his spring training stats were terrible. I cannot put Pache in as our starting center fielder right now. He needs to improve. Andrew Vaughn is the number 6 prospect in baseball. I find that hilarious. He is just not that good. We are probably going to trade him before the draft. Joda Hill, I do not recognize that name, but man, this guy is good. Maybe we could trade Vaughn for him in a 1-for-1. I would be just stunned if we could do it, but I'm going to try because it would be great. As expected, Judah Hill is going to be much more heavily valued by the Yankees than that. Man, those lucky scouting discoveries. Wait a second. Oh, Joe Kelly. Yeah, star player Joe Kelly. Star troller would be a more accurate term. Thomas Suzuki being a top 10 prospect is stunning. I can't believe that the prospects list is actually this week. Juan Aguilar, really catching my eye. We'll have to keep definitely out for that. Wow, Ozuna just did not have success in free agency. All right, well, I'm going to build the final roster here, and we'll see what happens. Oh, also, more good news. Tyler Ivey has been returned to us. The team that took him in the Rule 5 draft apparently just was not thrilled with his performance, so he is going to rejoin our organization. So we need to clear some roster spots on our 40-man. I shipped Brad Hand and Fernando Romero, who needed to be put on the 40-man roster, to the Pirates in return for Josh Bell. I'm probably going to trade Josh Bell. He doesn't really have a spot on our roster, so we'll see what I can get for him. All right, we've got a series of deals here. First one is going to be acquiring Luis Giarme from the Mets. He will actually be our starting second baseman heading into this year. That means both Nicky Lopez and Nico Horner are going to be in the minors, weirdly enough. We're going to be giving up Evan White, who has not really been what we'd hoped, and Tyler Ivey to get him. We're getting $11 million back in this deal as well, so it's not too bad at all. And then we are going to be making a trade with the Padres, sending over Josh Bell 80% retained and Maximo Acosta as the kicker. We're getting back Jacob Nix and Dinelson Lamet. Definitely do not intend to keep Dinelson Lamet around. We're going to figure out some kind of a trade involving him. But it's nice to get some really good pieces here. Nix is definitely an option for our rotation, so that one's pretty solid. And I'm going to figure something out to acquire a replacement outfielder for White. It's usually a death sentence to take on Stanton's contract, but here I think we kind of have to. We're sending over Nicky Lopez, who doesn't really have a spot in our organization at this point. Dinelson Lamet, who also doesn't really have a spot in our organization. Lewis Brinson, who also doesn't have a spot in our organization. And the big sting is Willie Calhoun, who has been very heavily valued by other teams. And I think this is definitely the appropriate time to trade him while his value is at an apex. In return, we are going to get Judah Hill. He's a captain. He absolutely mashes, especially right-handed pitching. So he is going to be a big part of our offense. And we're also acquiring, of course, Giancarlo Stanton. He has that prodigious power. He's going to crush lefties in particular while also hitting righties well. Stanton will DH. Judah Hill will play left field. We are getting a first-round draft pick from the Yankees. Stanton's 5% retained, and we're getting $8.2 million. I'm going to try to get rid of Stanton, but I wouldn't mind if he ends up having to play like a year for us, but I really don't want him to stick around, so we'll see what we can do, and yeah. Amazingly, the Astros uh, are the only team out there that are actually interested in Giancarlo Stanton and his whole contract. So we're going to be standing over Stanton for Brian Abreu, former top prospect. Brian Abreu and throwing in Daniel Lynch to also acquire last year's Rookie of the Year candidate, Brandon Bielik. So I think this is a good acquisition for us, and we now have the funds to take on one more big bat or something of the like, so I'm probably going to look for a hitter acquisition from here. All right, earlier I was contemplating the possibility of acquiring Chris Bryant to play left field. Well, we are now acquiring him. Bryant is definitely going to be a big hitter for us. He is versatile, he is great, and we are giving up Brian Abreu, who we just acquired from the Astros. He was the cheapest chip available. Bryant was the best hitter we could reasonably acquire, and I think overall this is a beneficial deal to us and our team this year. So that's going to be it for this video. I'm going to construct the roster for opening day, and then our next one is going to pick it up right there. So I hope you guys are enjoying this series and all future things that we do with imported games. Let me know if you guys have any particular OOTP 20 or OOTP 21 teams you would like to see, any players you want me to go back and look at, or anything like that at all. I think I'm going to have some fun with this, and I'll see you guys on the next one.